Ever imagine yourself at the helm of the whole U.S. Navy?
Wow.
That's kind of what we're looking at today.
Yeah.
The CNO's Navigation Plan for 2024.
Right.
It's their,
I was
roadmap.
gonna say roadmap through some pretty choppy waters.
Choppy is an understatement.
Yeah, no kidding.
But it's not just, ships and submarines anymore. It's a
No.
whole different ball game.
It really is a different world out there than even just a few years ago.
We're talking cutting-edge tech, global hotspots, like the future of naval warfare.
Absolutely. And Admiral Franchetti, she took command with a lot on her plate, a lot of challenges right out of the gate.
Yeah.
A more assertive China, a wounded but still unpredictable Russia.
Right.
And then you threw in the ripple effects from conflicts like we saw in 2023 between Israel and Hamas. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Tense and complex doesn't even begin to cover it.
No, it doesn't. And, this plan doesn't sugarcoat it.
Not at all.
They come right out and say it. China's goal of being ready for war by 2027.
Yeah, it's front and center in the document, no question about it.
So how do they respond to that?
Well, the key takeaway is it's not just about building more ships, right?
Right.
They're looking at this future of multi-domain warfare.
Okay.
So think, land, sea, air, space, cyberspace, it all blends together.
Wow.
And it's not just military might either.
Okay.
They talk about the need for a strong industrial base, one that's ready to shift gears if things heat up.
So like wartime production.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they also emphasize economic influence as a major factor.
Right, because that's always been a big part of it.
Absolutely. So it's like, I don't know, it's almost like a multi-level chess game.
That's a good way to put it.
And the stakes are incredibly high.
Incredibly high is right, yeah.
But what does all this mean for the average person?
That's a question we should all be asking ourselves because whether we realize it or not, these geopolitical tensions, they have a direct impact on our lives.
Yeah, they do.
Think about those supply chain disruptions everyone experienced not that long ago.
Right. Everyone was freaking out about toilet paper.
Exactly. Now, imagine that on a much larger scale, it's not just about inconvenience then, is it?
Right, right.
And then you've got the technology angle.
Yeah.
The innovations they're developing for this new era of naval warfare, they often end up shaping the technology we use every single day. It's all interconnected, which is fascinating, but, maybe a little unnerving too.
Yeah, a little bit.
To say the least.
It's like that old saying, when the U.S. sneezes, the world catches a cold. But this isn't a sneeze, is it?
No, not even close.
It's more like, I don't know, a seismic shift in global power.
And we're just seeing the beginning of it.
And the technology is going to be a huge part of that.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where this plan gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because they're making some radical changes to stay ahead of the game, really leaning into the future.
Okay, so what kind of tech are we even talking about?
Well, we're talking about a whole new world of warfare.
What's got the Navy so spooked that they're rewriting the playbook?
I wouldn't say spooked. It's more like adapting to a new reality.
Okay.
Because even non-state actors can pack a serious punch these days.
Because of
technology, right.
Right.
It's cheaper, it's more accessible than ever before.
You're talking about things like what we've seen in Ukraine.
Exactly.
And their drone attacks against the Russian Navy.
Exactly. Who would have thought?
I mean, who would have thought that commercially available drones could go up against, sophisticated warships?
I know, right?
And come out on top.
It's amazing. It really is a wake-up call.
For everyone.
Yeah, including the U.S. Navy, and they know it.
How can you tell?
Well, they actually use the phrase accelerate, change, or lose in the plan.
Wow.
So that gives you a sense of the urgency they're feeling.
Yeah.
They're going all in on unmanned systems, drones, underwater vehicles, even autonomous vessels.
Like unmanned ships.
You name it, they're looking at it. They're even creating a whole new enlisted rating.
It's really
The Robotics Warfare Specialist.
robotics warfare specialist.
Yeah.
That sounds like straight out of a movie.
It does, doesn't it?
So instead of sending sailors into harm's way, they're going to be controlling robots from a safe distance.
That's the general idea, but it's not quite as simple as it sounds.
Right.
I mean, think about the skills these sailors will need.
Yeah.
Programming, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, real-time strategy. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah, it is.
This is a whole new breed of warfare.
It really is, and it raises so many questions.
Yeah, like what?
Like, how do you effectively combine human sailors and autonomous systems in combat?
Yeah, that's a big one.
How do you even train for that kind of coordination?
It's a huge shift.
It's massive.
And the Navy's grappling with all of these questions right now.
So what are they doing?
I mean, they're running simulations, war games, trying to figure out how to integrate this tech into their existing fleet structure.
It's like a massive undertaking.
It is. It's like they're building the plane as they fly it.
It's like trying to remodel your kitchen while you're still cooking 3 meals a day.
That's a good one.
You know?
Yeah,
You need to modernize,
of course.
but you can't just shut everything down while you do it.
Exactly. And that brings us to another big challenge. The plan highlights
Okay.
balancing today's needs with building the Navy of the future, right?
Okay.
Because they recognize they need to be bigger, more advanced, more adaptable,
Right.
but they also know they can't just snap their fingers and make it happen overnight.
So how do they walk that tightrope?
Well, they lay out a clear order of priorities.
Okay. I'm listening.
Readiness, capability, then capacity.
And that order is important.
It's crucial. Yeah, that order is really important.
Break it down for us. What does that actually mean in practical terms?
Okay, so basically, they're prioritizing fixing what they've already got, addressing those maintenance backlogs, making sure their existing ships are as effective as possible.
Right. Get the most out of what you have.
Exactly. And then finding creative ways to train sailors, simulations, VR, all that stuff.
To stretch that budget further.
Exactly.
It's like a sports team, right?
How so?
I don't know. Help me out here.
Okay, imagine you're the coach, right?
Right.
Limited budget.
Always.
Do you spend it all on flashy free agents, or do you invest in developing your young talent, building for the future?
Okay. Yeah.
So the Navy's facing a similar dilemma.
In that they...
Do they pour all their resources into new ships right now?
Right.
Or do they invest in the tech, the training, the stuff that'll give them an edge 10, 20 years down the line?
So they're thinking long term.
They are. They're really emphasizing that capacity, meaning the number of ships. It's important, but...
There's a but.
But it shouldn't come at the expense of readiness and capability.
Got to be ready to use what you've got.
Exactly. And that leads us to another really important concept in the plan, the war-fighting ecosystem.
War-fighting ecosystem.
Yeah.
War-fighting ecosystem.
Yeah, it sounds a little buzzwordy.
It does sound a little buzzwordy.
But it's actually a really important concept.
Okay, so what does it mean?
So basically, it's how everything fits together.
Everything.
Yeah, like all the different parts of the Navy, submarines, surface ships, aircraft.
They all have to work together seamlessly.
Okay, that makes sense.
But it goes beyond that. It also includes space-based assets like satellites,
Yeah.
cyber warfare capabilities,
Nice.
even cooperation with, other branches of the military international ally.
So it's like this big interconnected web.
Exactly. It's about connecting everything, sharing information, presenting a united front.
So it's like, I don't know, like a perfectly synchronized orchestra,
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
where every instrument is playing its part
Exactly.
in this much larger symphony.
And this symphony has a purpose.
Right. It's not just for show.
It's designed to counter specific threats, achieve strategic goals.
So how does this warfighting ecosystem actually work in practice? Well, one of the key concepts within this ecosystem is something called distributed maritime operations.
Distributed maritime operations.
Yeah, remember how we talked about those cheaper, more accessible technologies?
Right. Changing the game.
Exactly. This is how the Navy's adapting to that.
Okay, walk me through it.
So basically, it's about being less of a target
Okay.
while still being able to bring the fight to the enemy when you need to.
Okay, so spread out, but still deadly.
Precisely. Think of it like this. Instead of having all your eggs in one basket, like a single carrier strike group that's vulnerable to attack,
Right.
you distribute your forces across a wider area.
Okay.
Makes it much harder for the enemy to take you out.
Makes sense.
You've got unmanned vessels feeding information back to destroyers, submarines lurking beneath the waves, aircraft providing air cover.
So it's a much more complex battle space.
Exactly. Much more unpredictable for any adversary to operate in.
It's like 3D chess, but with real warships and fighter jets.
Right. And they're using technology to do more with less.
Cover more ground with the same or even fewer resources.
Exactly.
It's fascinating.
It is. And remember those Red Sea incidents we mentioned?
Yeah, where things got a little tense.
To say the least. Well, that's a perfect example of this distributed, networked approach to warfare playing out in the real world.
So the Navy had to...
They had to deter threats from multiple actors, protect shipping lanes, defend against everything from swarming boats to drone strikes.
Wow, that's a lot to juggle.
It is. It requires incredible coordination, communication, adaptability.
And that's where that whole warfighting ecosystem comes into play.
Exactly. You need all the pieces working together.
To achieve the mission.
Precisely.
Okay, so we've talked about the big picture, the overall strategy, But what about the specifics?
You mean like the to-do list?
Yeah, the to-do list.
The Navy has that too.
Really? What do they call it?
Project 33.
Project 33.
Yeah, it's the CNO's roadmap for the next few years.
Okay, I like it. Sounds very official.
It's a mix of urgent needs and long-term vision. Really fascinating stuff.
All right, so what's on the Admiral's to-do list? All right, so what's on the Admiral's to-do list?
Well, right at the top, fixing that maintenance mess.
No surprise there.
Not glamorous, but essential.
Right. Got to keep those ships afloat.
Exactly. No more ships stuck in dry dock for years waiting on repairs.
Okay, what else?
Big push to integrate all those unmanned systems, the robots, into everyday naval operations.
So, like, making science fiction a reality?
Pretty much. And they're putting a lot of emphasis on shoring up their bases and infrastructure, too.
Makes sense. Even the Navy needs reliable plumbing.
Exactly. But perhaps most importantly, they're focusing on their sailors.
The human element.
Absolutely, because you can have all the fancy tech in the world.
Right, but without the people to run it.
Useless. The plan talks about improving housing, creating a more sustainable work-life balance.
Like a burnout.
Exactly. They're recognizing that taking care of their people, it's not just the right thing to do, it's essential for operational effectiveness.
Happy sailors, effective Navy.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
But this plan, it's not just about the next few years, is it? It seems to take a much longer view.
It does. They acknowledge that 2027, it's not a finish line, just a milestone.
Okay, so what comes after that? What does the future of naval warfare even look like?
They hint at some really radical changes, a fully realized hybrid fleet, where you've got manned and unmanned vessels working together seamlessly.
Wow, so like a team of humans and robots all working together.
Exactly. Sharing information, coordinating attacks in ways we can only imagine right now.
So the battle space is changing.
Fundamentally, imagine a world where data is as important as firepower, where AI is helping commanders make split-second decisions.
And the line between like the virtual and the real, it's blurring.
Exactly. It's a whole new era of warfare.
It's kind of exciting and terrifying at the same time.
It is, and it highlights how the decisions being made today, the investments in technology and training, they'll have ripple effects for decades to come.
And that's why we're here, right?
Yeah.
Breaking it down.
Exactly. This navigation plan, it's not just some dry document. It's a roadmap to the future. And it's a future that's full of challenges, but also opportunities.
So much to think about.
A lot to consider, and it's up to all of us to understand what's at stake, to engage in this conversation about the future of naval warfare, because it affects us all.
That's a great point to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the CNO's navigation plan. It's been, well, eye-opening, to say the least.
Agreed. Thanks for having me.
And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time for another deep dive.